Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth Newsom and welcome to my booktube channel. So today I'm going to talk about how to navigate the world of Wattpad both as a reader and a writer. So if my voice sounds a bit funny, I'm sorry about that. My nose is a little stuffed lately. So I'll try to speak really clearly. So first of all, I'd like to address some concerns about Wattpad. I know some writers who have kind of avoided posting too much on Wattpad or being as involved as they could be because they don't want to give away too much for free or they're worried about people stealing their work. And I personally love Wattpad. I just passed 700 followers a little while ago, although it's taken me many years to get here. But here's why I've kept posting online. So first of all is connections. I've met the cover designer who's going to design my future book through Wattpad, and then I met Sarah Cubitt, who's now my YouTube collab partner. And I've just met tons of people who are really loyal fans, so loyal in fact that they've come to check me out here on my YouTube channel, and I'm honored that they have. And speaking of fans, Wattpad gives you some great statistics so you could get an idea of the demographic that you're supposed to target. It gives you a list of age groups, gender, and then countries. Another reason is feedback. People will comment on your story and they will be very honest where their opinions are concerned. Some might not be too harsh, like just kind of sarcastic, but it's a great opportunity to take all that feedback and respond to it. And though some comments are a bit critical, then there are also encouraging comments. So I never actually completed a book until I started posting online, and that was a fan fiction. And I completed 3 stories like that, and then I did a few story drafts on my own without readers, which is a lot harder because I love that external feedback. And then also it gives you just sheer writing practice, like getting in thousands and thousands of words and putting that into a story. And then finally, the numbers. You can actually take the numbers of views, reviews, and likes you have of a story, and when you go to a writer's conference, you can present it to whoever you're meeting with, whether it's a literary agent, an editor, a publisher, and they'll take those numbers very seriously. When I first went to a writer's conference, on my pitch, I put the number of views and reviews the first draft of the story I was trying to get published had, and those numbers are very significant. So if you get a lot of popularity on Wattpad, it's likely that you'll have an easier time finding an agent to represent you or an editor. And as far as giving away things for free is concerned, I think you have to give a lot before you receive anything, and that's kind of what Wattpad is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to just pour out all of these words and to get in that practice and to give to other people, and then eventually this will lead to a lot of experience and hopefully a fan base, which will help me publish my next book. And where copying is concerned, I mean, Wattpad doesn't allow plagiarism. You can't actually go on a computer and copy and paste someone's story. It's kind of difficult. In order to actually plagiarize someone's story, you'd need to type it out word for word. I mean, people can do that, but they can also take a published book and try and type it out word for word and post it somewhere online too. Either way, it's illegal. And now on to the tips. First of all, I'll start with writing and how to make the most of Wattpad as a writer. So first of all, be consistent. This is like my biggest tip, and I found that readers really appreciate it when you have an update schedule and they can rely on chapter updates. And when you have an update schedule, then the readers come in on those certain days and it really boosts your rankings for the days afterwards, which of course leads to more popularity. So have a specific time for when you should update your story. For me, I do 2 times a week on Wednesday and Friday at about 4 p.m. Central Time because my primary target audience is in the United States. And I figure at 4 p.m. there are some people who are kind of out of school and done with school activities. My second tip is to be involved. When someone comments on your story, comment back and start a discussion. Now, you could go to other stories and be involved there, but honestly, I haven't really found that very helpful. For me, the best way to accumulate readers has been just to keep on posting even when it seems like no one is reading it, to post consistently, and to post the best quality work that I'm capable of. But when readers respond to your story, just make sure to interact with them and be personable because, I mean, they're your readers, and they ultimately determine whether your story will sink or float. Speaking of readers, also be open to comments. This kind of refers back to an earlier point I made about feedback. One thing I love about posting on Wattpad is that I can respond to feedback immediately. So some people actually have a story pre-written out and they'll post the chapters like that. What I prefer to do is kind of just write a little every week and then post as the update dates and times come. And because I'm kind of writing on the fly like this, it makes it really easy to respond to feedback. Like if someone leaves a comment on how the character is being really stupid at a certain point, I can make a change in the very next chapter. And so that's a really cool opportunity that I get through Wattpad that I don't get through the normal drafts of my story that I write by myself. Another tip is to write a great cover and a great synopsis or story blurb. And also, title is really important too. I'm not sure I'm the best at titles. The titles so far I have on my story are Captured and Crowned, and then The King's Cursed Bride. And ultimately how I title a book is I take the very basic story concept and I name it after that. Ideally, your story concept should be pretty marketable and eye-catching, so hopefully creating a title based off of the story concept will work for you. And then also there are free cover designers on Wattpad. My personal favorite is Solidarity with an underscore. So Solidarity, or Kif as I call her, she's just really gracious. And she just inspires me, and her work is absolutely amazing. So not only do I love her and love working with her, but I absolutely adore her covers. I mean, just look at this one. So there are cover designers on there that do it for free, though you might have a wait period, especially if you try to get a really fabulous cover designer like Kif. And then for the synopsis or blurb, you know, that little story summary that you put at the beginning, just make sure it's really interesting and summarizes your story concept. Like I said earlier, if you have an interesting story concept, this shouldn't be a problem. And then you can run it through a few friends and family members and see if they think it's interesting. So these are important because a reader does judge things by the synopsis and cover and title, even though none of those have to do with the quality of story or the quality of writing. But it's all the reader has to go off of at a glance. And then finally, make sure to do some proofreading because it'll really up the quality and the professionalism of your book. So I didn't always do this. I remember when I first started writing Captured and Crowned, I literally wrote for 2 hours a day. So as soon as I finished my schoolwork for the day, I got my 2 hours in and I posted it. And since I didn't have a lot of extra time, I didn't proofread. But now even when I'm crunched for time, I always make sure to proofread. And the best proofreading tip I have is to read it aloud or at least kind of mouth it or say it quietly, because you'll catch a lot of typos that way that you would have missed otherwise. And then finally, I have some tips for readers. There aren't a whole lot of tips because primarily I'm a Wattpad writer, not a Wattpad reader. I obviously read books on Wattpad since I have the What We're Reading book club with Sarah. Ultimately, I spend way more time writing on Wattpad than I do reading, but I do have a few tips. My first one is to leave comments. If it's an author that you want to engage with or talk to, then just leave a little comment on pretty much every chapter because they will totally take note. I know personally as an author, I definitely take note when a reader consistently comments on my stories, and I really appreciate their support. Even if the author is super popular, they'll probably appreciate your support and they will definitely remember you. I remember leaving a few comments on one story that used to be on Wattpad, and this story was literally the #1 Wattpad fantasy book, so I thought it might be a good chance to engage with the author, but in the back of my head I'm like, nah, there's no way this author is ever going to remember me. I mean, seriously, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of views. Like, she was #1 for fantasy. And then on Facebook, she actually ended up later messaging me because she recognized my profile picture. So if you want to get an author's attention, make sure to leave plenty of comments because they will notice. And then finally, as far as selecting books goes, generally, quality leads to popularity. I don't usually try out books that only have like 2,000 views on it, just because it's kind of risky. If a story has a few 100,000 views, then usually it's a pretty safe bet that it's a decent story. And I know it's not always like this, but this is just kind of how I vet the stories that I read, just because anyone can post on Wattpad. So there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't really worth your time, which is fine because it's great practice for beginning writers, but you don't want to read all the works out there. And those are the best tips I have to offer you guys on how to Wattpad. I've only been on for like 4 or 5 years, so I'm not super experienced, but those are just a few of the things that I've learned along the way. And if you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, then please like and subscribe, and let me know if you've been on Wattpad and what your experience has been as a Wattpadder. Let me know down below, and I will see you next time.